The glass shattered 3 inches from her head, but Amara didn't flinch because she could feel him before she saw him, that electric pull that made her skin burn and her heart race in ways that terrified her more than any flying glass ever could. The investor was already reaching for her when Park Jay Hyun's eyes found hers across the room, blazing with possessive fury and something raw that looked dangerously like obsession, making her forget how to breathe because no one had ever looked at her like she was worth burning the world down for. His voice came out quiet, deadly, but it was the way his hand reached for her like he couldn't help himself that made her realize she wasn't just his assistant anymore. She was his, completely and irrevocably, and God help her, she wanted to be. If you're hooked already, show me by subscribing and hitting that notification bell because you definitely don't want to miss what he does next. The glass shattered against the wall 3 inches from Amara's head. She didn't flinch. Every instinct screamed at her to duck, to run, but she learned in her first week at Park Industries that showing fear in this building was like bleeding in shark-infested waters. Instead, she kept her spine straight and her eyes locked on the furious investor who'd just hurled his whiskey tumbler at the conference room wall. "This is what you bring me?" The man's face had gone purple. Some assistant who thinks she can speak in a room full of men who've been doing this since before she was born? Amara's fingers tightened around her tablet, but her voice came out steady. "The projections I presented are based on market analysis from the last 3 quarters. If you'd like to dispute the numbers, I can pull up the source data." The investor took a step toward her. The other men around the table shifted uncomfortably, but said nothing. Cowards, all of them. Amara had dealt with worse than this back in Atlanta, although admittedly those confrontations hadn't involved flying glassware. "You need to learn your place," the man hissed. The conference room door opened. Everyone in the room went still. Amara felt the temperature drop as Park Jay Hyun walked in, and for the first time since the glass shattered, real fear touched her spine. Not because of what the investor might do, but because of what her boss might. Jay Hyun didn't look at anyone but her. His eyes, dark and unreadable, swept over her face, checking for damage. Then his gaze moved to the broken glass scattered across the carpet, the whiskey stain running down the white wall. "Out." His voice was quiet. That made it worse. The investor's face went from purple to pale. "Jay Hyun, I don't remember asking for an explanation." Jay Hyun's tone didn't change. "I remember telling you to get out of my building. We've done business for 15 years. 14 years and 7 months. Jay Hyun finally looked at the man, and Amara watched the investor take an involuntary step backward. "Consider our relationship terminated as of this moment. Chin will escort you out." The head of security appeared in the doorway as if summoned by thought alone. The investor opened his mouth, closed it, then practically fled from the room. The other executives followed like a school of fish, not making eye contact with anyone. When the door closed, leaving them alone, Amara finally allowed herself to breathe properly. "Are you hurt?" Jay Hyun asked. "No." She set her tablet down on the conference table, annoyed to find her hands were shaking slightly. "I had the situation under control." Something that might have been amusement flickered across his face. "I'm sure you did." "That doesn't answer my question." "I'm fine." "Really?" She bent to start picking up the larger pieces of glass, needing something to do with her hands. "You didn't have to end a 15-year business relationship over a temper tantrum. 14 years and 7 months. He moved closer, and she was suddenly very aware that they were alone in the room, that his presence seemed to take up all the available air. "And I'll end a 40-year relationship if someone threatens what's mine." Amara's fingers stilled on a shard of glass. "I'm not. You work for me. That makes you mine to protect." He crouched down beside her, plucking the glass from her hand before she could argue. "Let maintenance handle this." She should move away. Should put professional distance between them like she'd been trying to do for the past 3 months. But she found herself studying his profile instead, the sharp line of his jaw, the way his expensive suit fit across his shoulders. He was beautiful in a dangerous way, like a blade that hadn't been sheathed properly. "You're staring." He didn't look at her, just continued gathering broken glass with careful precision. Heat rushed to her face. "I'm trying to figure you out." "Don't." Now he did look at her, and the intensity in his eyes made her breath catch. "People who try to figure me out usually end up disappointed or dead." "Is that a threat?" "It's a fact." He stood, holding the glass pieces carefully in one hand. "Take the rest of the day off. I have work to finish." Amara. The way he said her name, like he was tasting it, made her stomach flip. "For once, just do what you're told." She rose to her feet, bringing them close enough that she could smell his cologne, something dark and expensive that probably cost more than her rent. "I don't take orders well. You should have figured that out by now." The corner of his mouth lifted. "I know. It's one of the things I like about you." Before she could process that statement, he was walking toward the door, leaving her standing among the whiskey-stained carpet and the ghost of words that sounded too much like flirting. Amara pressed her fingers to her temples. 3 months. She'd been working as Jay Hyun's executive assistant for 3 months, and every day felt like walking a tightrope over something dark and dangerous. She'd known going into this job that Park Industries wasn't exactly legitimate. You didn't build an empire like this in Seoul without getting your hands dirty. But she needed the job, needed the visa sponsorship, needed the escape from Atlanta and the ex-boyfriend who'd made it clear he wasn't going to let her leave quietly. Korea had seemed like the perfect solution. Far enough away, different enough. And when Jay Hyun had offered her 3 times the salary she'd expected, she'd ignored every red flag her instincts raised. Now those flags were looking more like emergency flares. Her phone buzzed. A text from Kesha, her best friend back in Atlanta. "How's working for the Korean mob boss going?" Amara laughed despite herself. Kesha had called it from day one, had looked up Park Industries and come back with concerns and conspiracy theories. But Kesha didn't understand what it was like to need something so badly that you'd risk anything for it. "Fine. Boring, actually." The lie came easily. No need to mention flying glassware or the way her boss looked at her like he was memorizing her face. She gathered her things and headed out, nodding to the other assistants who watched her with a mixture of envy and pity. They all knew what happened to people who got too close to Jay Hyun. His last assistant had quit after 2 months, and the one before that had transferred to the Tokyo office, allegedly requesting the move herself. The elevator ride down felt longer than usual. Amara caught her reflection in the polished metal doors. She looked tired, dark circles under her brown eyes, her natural hair pulled back in a bun that had started to come loose during the confrontation. Professional enough for a corporate office, but she could still see the girl from Atlanta underneath. The one who'd thought she could change the world with an economics degree and enough determination. The lobby was bustling with activity. Park Industries occupied the top 15 floors of the building, and the traffic at this hour was always heavy. Amara was halfway to the exit when someone grabbed her arm. She spun, instincts from her old neighborhood kicking in, and found herself staring at a man she didn't recognize. Expensive suit, cold eyes, the kind of smile that made her skin crawl. "Miss Johnson." His English was accented but perfect. "I was hoping we could have a conversation." "Let go of my arm." She kept her voice level, aware of the security cameras, the witnesses. "Just a moment of your time." His grip tightened. "There are people who'd like to know more about your employer's business dealings." Ice slid down her spine. "I don't know what you're talking about." "I think you do." He leaned closer, and she could smell cigarette smoke on his breath. "You're a smart woman. Smart enough to know when you're working for a criminal organization. We could offer you protection, a way out." She said, "Let go." The man's hand dropped from her arm like he'd been burned. Amara turned to find Shin standing behind them, his expression neutral but his presence radiating threat. The head of security was built like a mountain, and right now, he looked like an avalanche about to happen. "We were just talking," the man said. "Talking is done." Chen's hand settled on the man's shoulder. "Let me show you out." It wasn't a request. The man shot Amara one last look, something between pity and warning, then allowed himself to be steered toward the exit. Amara's heart was hammering. She felt Chen's presence at her side as they walked toward the parking garage, his silence somehow more unsettling than conversation would have been. "Does Jay Hyun know?" she finally asked. "He knows everything that happens in this building." Chen's voice was matter-of-fact. "He's waiting for you in the garage." "I thought I was supposed to take the day off." Plans changed. The garage was dimly lit, the kind of place that always made Amara's urban survival instincts fire. Jay Hyun was leaning against a black sedan, his tie loosened, and for a moment, she saw past the corporate shark exterior to something more human underneath. Then his eyes met hers, and the moment shattered. "Get in the car," he said. "Where are we going?" "Somewhere safe." He opened the passenger door. "That was the third person this week who's tried to approach you." Amara's stomach dropped. "Third? I didn't notice." "I know. That's the problem." He waited, patient but immovable. "Get in the car, Amara." She should refuse. Should call Kesha, should book a flight back to Atlanta, should do anything except get into a car with a man who admitted to being dangerous. But the memory of that stranger's grip on her arm, the cold calculation in his eyes, made the decision for her. She got in the car. Jay Hyun drove like he did everything else, with precise control and complete confidence. They left the city center, heading into the hills where Seoul's wealthy kept their estates. Amara watched the city lights fall away behind them and tried to calm her racing thoughts. "You're angry," Jay Hyun said. "I'm processing." She kept her eyes on the road. "You want to tell me who that man was?" "Someone who works for people interested in my business operations." "And by interested, you mean?" "I mean they'd like to see me in prison or dead, preferably both." He took a curve with easy precision. "You've worked for me for 3 months. You're observant, intelligent, and you have access to information that could be valuable to the wrong people. So I'm a target now." The words came out flat. "Because I took a job that promised visa sponsorship and good pay." Yes. At least he was honest. Amara leaned her head back against the seat, exhaustion hitting her all at once. "You should fire me. Send me back to the States where I'm not in danger." "No. That's it?" "Just no." He glanced at her, and there was something in his expression she couldn't read. "I told you earlier. You're mine to protect. I don't give up what's mine. I'm not a possession. I know exactly what you are." His voice dropped, became something darker. "You're brilliant and brave and too stubborn for your own good. You walk into rooms full of men who want to intimidate you, and you don't blink. You question my decisions when everyone else just nods and agrees. You're exactly the kind of liability I should never have hired." Her heart was doing strange things in her chest. "Then why did you?" "Because the moment you walked into my office for that interview, looked me in the eye, and told me my company's market strategy was outdated, I knew I'd either hire you or spend the rest of my life regretting it." The car fell silent except for the hum of the engine. Amara didn't know what to say to that, didn't know how to process the admission. So she focused on the safer question. "Where are we going?" "My house." "You'll stay there until we've dealt with the current threat." "I can't just move into your house." "You can and you will." He turned onto a private road, security gates opening automatically. "Your apartment isn't secure." "Mine is." End of discussion. The house that appeared at the end of the drive made Amara's breath catch. It was modern architecture at its finest, all clean lines and floor-to-ceiling windows, perched on the hillside like a bird of prey watching the city below. "This is where you live?" She couldn't quite keep the awe from her voice. "One of the places." He parked in front of the main entrance. "I have properties in Tokyo, Hong Kong, and Los Angeles. But this is home." He said it simply, but Amara heard the weight behind the word. Home wasn't just a place for him. It was a fortress, a sanctuary, something he'd built with blood and determination. The interior was even more stunning. Minimalist design, expensive art on the walls, furniture that probably cost more than she'd made in the past year. But there were personal touches too. Books in Korean and English on the shelves. A photograph of an older couple she assumed were his parents. A kitchen that looked actually used, not just for show. "The guest room is upstairs," Jay Hyun said, shrugging out of his suit jacket. "First door on the left." Chin had your things brought over already. You had my things brought over before asking if I'd agree to stay here? I knew you'd agree. He poured himself a drink from a crystal decanter. You're practical. You understand the situation. I understand that you're used to getting what you want. Yes. He met her eyes over the rim of his glass. I am. The challenge hung in the air between them. Amara knew she should back down, should take her things and go to the guest room like a sensible person. Instead, she found herself walking closer, drawn by something she didn't want to name. What if I said no? She stopped a few feet away. What if I demanded you take me back to my apartment? I'd tell you it wasn't safe. And if I insisted? He set down his glass with careful precision. Then I'd have Chin watch your apartment building all night to make sure nothing happened to you, and I'd spend those same hours wondering if I'd made the wrong decision in letting you go. Her breath caught. Jay Hyun. I don't expect anything from you. His voice had gone rough. You'll have your own space, your own privacy. This is about keeping you safe, nothing more. But the way he was looking at her suggested it was very much more. Amara could feel the pull between them, the same tension that had been building for 3 months. Every time he'd stood too close in the office. Every time their hands had brushed passing documents. Every time she'd caught him watching her with an expression that made her forget how to breathe. I should go upstairs, she said. You should. Neither of them moved. Then Jae Hyun's phone rang, shattering the moment. He answered in rapid Korean, his expression hardening as he listened. When he ended the call, he looked at her with something that might have been regret. I have to go out. There's food in the kitchen. Security codes are on the panel by the door. Don't leave the house. Where are you going? To handle the people who think they can threaten you. He pulled his jacket back on, and just like that, he was the dangerous stranger again. I'll be back before morning. He left before she could argue, and Amara stood in the enormous living room, surrounded by luxury and danger in equal measure, wondering what exactly she'd gotten herself into. If you're enjoying this story, hit that subscribe button and let me know in the comments what you think is going to happen next. The guest room was beautiful. King-sized bed with sheets that probably cost more than her entire bedroom set back home. Floor-to-ceiling windows offering a view of Seoul that took her breath away. An en-suite bathroom with a tub large enough to swim in. Amara found her suitcase waiting on the bed, neatly packed with her clothes and toiletries. Chin had been thorough. She should feel violated by the invasion of privacy, but mostly, she just felt tired. She showered, letting the hot water wash away the stress of the day, then changed into pajamas and tried to sleep. But her mind wouldn't stop racing. Every sound made her jump. Every shadow seemed threatening. And underneath it all was the memory of how Jae Hyun had looked at her, like she was something precious and dangerous all at once. Around 3 in the morning, she gave up on sleep and went downstairs. The house was silent, but she found the kitchen and made herself tea, something her grandmother had taught her to do when anxiety threatened to overwhelm her. She was sitting at the kitchen island, nursing her second cup, when she heard the front door open. Jae Hyun walked in, and Amara's breath stopped in her throat. His shirt was torn, blood on his knuckles, a cut above his eyebrow that was still bleeding. But his eyes were clear, focused, scanning the room until they found her. You should be asleep, he said. You should be in a hospital. She set down her tea and moved toward him before her brain could catch up with her body. What happened? Nothing that won't heal. But he swayed slightly and she caught his arm. Up close, she could see the exhaustion in his face, the way he was holding his left side carefully. You're hurt. I've had worse. That's not reassuring. She guided him to a chair, surprised when he let her. First aid kit? Bathroom under the stairs. She found it, along with supplies that suggested this wasn't the first time he'd come home injured. When she returned, he'd stripped off his ruined shirt, and she had to force herself to focus on the medical supplies instead of the expanse of his chest, the muscles and scars that told stories she wasn't sure she wanted to know. The cut above his eyebrow needed attention first. She cleaned it gently, aware of how still he'd gone, how his eyes never left her face. You don't have to do this, he said quietly. I know. She applied butterfly bandages with steady hands. But you took on whatever you took on because of me. So let me help. It wasn't just because of you. His voice had dropped to something almost intimate. The people who approached you today, they've been a problem for months. You just gave me an excuse to handle it. Handle it how? You don't want to know. He was probably right. But she also knew, standing here in his kitchen at 3 in the morning, cleaning blood from his knuckles while he watched her like she was the only thing in the world that mattered, that she was crossing a line she couldn't uncross. Your ribs, she said, noticing the way he was breathing. Let me see. Amara, you're injured. Let me see. He held her gaze for a long moment, then lifted his arm. The bruising along his left side was spectacular, purple and black, and definitely indicating cracked ribs at minimum. She touched the area carefully, feeling him tense under her fingers. Hospital, she said firmly. Now. No hospitals. They ask questions I don't want to answer. Then what? Wrap them. He gestured to the first aid kit. Tight enough to stabilize, not tight enough to restrict breathing. You know how? She did. Her brother had played football in high school, and she'd learned basic sports medicine to help him. But this was different. This wasn't a game injury. This was violence, real and brutal, and she was complicit now just by being here. Her hands shook slightly as she wrapped his ribs. He didn't make a sound, didn't flinch, just watched her with those dark eyes that saw too much. Why? The question escaped before she could stop it. Why go this far for someone you barely know? His hand came up, catching her wrist gently. I've known you for 3 months. I know how you take your coffee. I know you bite your lip when you're concentrating. I know you call your mother every Sunday and lie about how safe your job is. I know you cry at animal videos, but you'd never admit it. I know more about you than you think. Her heart was racing. That's not knowing someone. That's observing them. Then let me know you. His thumb brushed across her pulse point. Let me be more than your employer. More than the dangerous man you work for. I can't. The words hurt coming out. This is wrong. You're my boss. You're involved in things I don't want to understand. And I'm supposed to be keeping my head down, doing my job, not what? He stood, bringing them close enough that she had to tilt her head back to maintain eye contact. Not feeling what you're feeling? Not wanting what you want. Jay Hyun. He kissed her. It wasn't gentle. It was possession and question and demand all at once. His hand cupped the back of her neck, angling her head, and she made a sound that might have been protest or surrender. She should push him away. Should remember all the reasons this was a terrible idea. Instead, she kissed him back. It was like falling and flying at the same time. His mouth was hot against hers, tasting like danger and want. Her hands found his shoulders, careful of his injuries, and he made a sound low in his throat that sent heat pooling in her stomach. When they finally broke apart, both breathing hard, reality crashed back in. We can't, Amara whispered, but she didn't step back. This is inevitable. He rested his forehead against hers. This has been inevitable since the moment you walked into my office and challenged me. You're bleeding on your kitchen floor, I'm your employee, and people are trying to kill us. This is the worst possible time. There's never a good time for this. His hand was still cradled at the back of her neck, his thumb brushing her skin. But I'm done pretending I don't want you. Done pretending you're just my assistant. What am I then? Mine. The word was fierce, absolute. If you'll have me. Amara closed her eyes, trying to find the strength to be sensible. But when she opened them again and saw the vulnerability beneath his fierce expression, the way he was offering her something he probably never offered anyone, she knew she'd already made her choice. This is a mistake, she said. Probably. We're going to regret this. Maybe. I'm still scared. Good. He kissed her again, softer this time. Fear means you're paying attention. Just don't let it stop you from taking what you want. And wasn't that the question? What did she want? Safety had driven her to Seoul, but safety was boring. Security was important, but security didn't make her heart race. And this man, dangerous and damaged and completely focused on her, made her feel more alive than she had in years. "Stay with me tonight," he said against her mouth. "Just sleep. Nothing more unless you want it. But let me hold you." It was the please buried in his tone that undid her. This man who commanded empires and broke bones, asking her to stay like she had the power here. "Your ribs." "I don't care about my ribs." But he did take her hand, leading her toward the stairs. "Come on. Before you change your mind." His bedroom was larger than the guest room, dominated by a massive bed and more of those floor-to-ceiling windows showing soul spread out below like scattered diamonds. He pulled back the covers, and she hesitated only a moment before sliding in. When he joined her, careful of his injuries, she felt the heat of him along her back. His arm came around her waist, pulling her close, and she let herself relax into his hold. "This doesn't change anything at work," she said into the darkness. "Everything has already changed." His breath was warm against her neck. "But we'll figure it out. Together." She wanted to argue, wanted to list all the reasons this wouldn't work. But exhaustion and relief and something that felt dangerously like hope were pulling her under. The last thing she felt before sleep claimed her was his lips brushing her temple, gentle as a promise. Amara woke to sunlight and the smell of coffee. For a moment, she forgot where she was, then the memories of last night crashed back. The kiss. The vulnerability. The way she'd fallen asleep in Jay Hyun's arms like it was the most natural thing in the world. She sat up, finding herself alone in the massive bed. Panic tried to claw its way up her throat. Had she imagined it? Had she made a terrible mistake? Then she saw the note on the nightstand, written in Jay Hyun's precise handwriting. "Had to handle business. Back by noon. Stay in the house. Coffee is fresh. Help yourself to anything in the kitchen." And Amara, last night wasn't a mistake. Stop overthinking it. She read it 3 times, then pressed it to her chest like a teenager with a love letter. This was ridiculous. She was a grown woman with a degree in economics and enough sense to know when she was getting in over her head. But her heart didn't care about sense. She showered and dressed in casual clothes from her suitcase, then ventured downstairs. The coffee was indeed fresh, and she found pastries from an expensive bakery in the kitchen. Chin was nowhere to be seen, but she had the sense she wasn't really alone. This house probably had security she couldn't see. Her phone buzzed. "Kesha, you never text me back this fast." "What's wrong?" "Nothing. Everything. I kissed my boss." The response was immediate. "What?" "Details. Now." Amara sank onto the couch, coffee in hand, and tried to figure out how to explain something she didn't understand herself. But before she could type a response, the front door opened. Jay Hyun walked in, and her heart did that stupid fluttering thing again. He'd changed clothes, looked more rested, though she could still see the cut above his eyebrow, the careful way he moved that suggested his ribs still hurt. "You're up," he said, like this was normal. Like she regularly woke up in his house after kissing him in his kitchen at 3 in the morning. "Your note said you'd be back by noon." She glanced at the clock. "It's 10:30. I finished early." He crossed to her, and she found herself holding her breath. "Wanted to get back to you. Jay Hyun." He kissed her, quick and sure, cutting off whatever protest she'd been about to make. When he pulled back, she was dizzy. "Good morning," he said, smiling slightly. "That's not fair." "What isn't?" "Kissing me before I've had enough coffee to think clearly." "Who said I want you thinking clearly?" But he moved to the kitchen, giving her space to breathe. "Hungry? I make excellent breakfast." The domesticity of it threw her. This was the man she'd seen in suits commanding boardrooms, the man who'd come home bleeding at 3 in the morning. And now he was offering to make her breakfast like they were a normal couple. "I don't understand you," she admitted. He cracked eggs into a pan with practiced ease. "What's to understand? You run an organization that does things I probably shouldn't know about. You have enemies who want you dead. You came home bleeding last night. And now you're making me breakfast like none of that matters." "It doesn't matter. Not compared to you being here." He looked at her over his shoulder. The rest of it, the business, the violence, that's what I do. But this, you here in my home, letting me take care of you, that's who I want to be. Her chest felt tight. You can't separate them that easily. Watch me. He plated the eggs, added toast and fruit, brought it to her like an offering. Eat. Then we need to talk about what happens next. The food was perfect, and she ate while he sat across from her with his own plate, both of them pretending this was normal. When she finished, he took her plate and set it aside, then captured her hands in his. The people who approached you yesterday work for Kim Dae-young. He's been trying to move into territory I control for the past year. Using you to get to me is exactly the kind of move he'd make. So I'm bait. You were supposed to be. But I eliminated enough of his network last night that he'll think twice before trying again. His thumbs brushed across her knuckles. You're safe now. You can go back to your apartment, back to work, back to normal. And if I don't want normal? The words escaped before she could stop them. Something fierce and possessive flashed in his eyes. Then stay. Stay here. Be with me. Let me keep you safe while we figure out what this is between us. That's not how real relationships work. You can't just lock me in your fortress. I'm not locking you anywhere. But his grip on her hands tightened slightly. I'm asking you to choose me. Choose this. Despite everything you know, everything that scares you, choose us. She wanted to. God, she wanted to so badly it hurt. But fear and logic were screaming at her in equal measure. What about work? What about the fact that you're my boss? What about? I'll make you a partner. He said it like it was simple. Equal stake in the legitimate side of the business. You're brilliant at what you do. I'd be an idiot not to capitalize on that. You can't just promote me because I'm not. I'm promoting you because you've increased efficiency by 30% in 3 months, because my investors respect you even when they're intimidated by you, because you understand this business better than half the men who've been doing it for decades. He pulled her closer. The personal relationship is separate. Though I won't lie and say it doesn't make me happy. Happy. She tested the word. You don't seem like someone who thinks much about happiness. I didn't. Until you. It was too much. Too fast. Too everything. But when she looked into his eyes and saw the truth there, saw the way he was offering her something real despite all his walls and weapons, she felt her resistance crumbling. I'm scared, she whispered. I know. He brought her hands to his lips, kissing her knuckles gently. I'm scared too. I've never wanted to keep someone safe as much as I want to keep you safe. Never wanted to be worthy of someone as much as I want to be worthy of you. You are worthy. Not yet. But I'll spend every day trying to be. He stood, pulling her up with him. Stay. Give us a chance. If it doesn't work, I'll help you find another job, another place to live. I'll make sure you're safe and settled before I walk away. And if it does work? His smile was dangerous and full of promise. Then I'm keeping you forever. She should say no. Should run back to Atlanta where life was simple and safe and boring. But when Jay Hyun pulled her close, careful of his ribs, and kissed her like she was oxygen, she found herself saying yes. The next 3 weeks were a study in contrasts. Days were professional, working side by side at Park Industries, and Amara was surprised by how easily they fell into partnership. Jay Hyun respected her opinions, argued with her when they disagreed, and implemented her strategies even when they went against his instincts. The board of directors had been stunned when he announced her promotion to partner, but the numbers didn't lie. Under her influence, the legitimate side of the business was flourishing. Nights were different. Nights were stolen kisses in the car on the way home, dinners where they talked about everything except business, quiet moments on the couch where he held her like she might disappear. They hadn't slept together yet, not completely. Jay Hyun seemed determined to take things slow, to prove this wasn't just physical. But the tension between them was building, every touch electric, every kiss leaving them both wanting more. 3 weeks in, they went to a company gala. Amara wore a dress that cost more than her first car, deep emerald green that made her skin glow, her natural hair styled in an elegant updo. When Jay Hyun saw her, something primal flashed in his eyes. "You're stunning," he said, voice rough. "You clean up pretty well yourself." He did. Tuxedo tailored perfectly, hair swept back, looking every inch the powerful executive. No one looking at him would guess he'd broken someone's arm 2 nights ago for trying to move stolen pharmaceuticals through one of his warehouses. The gala was held at one of Seoul's most prestigious hotels. Everyone who was anyone in Korean business would be there. Amara felt the weight of curious eyes as they walked in together, Jay Hyun's hand possessive at the small of her back. "They're staring," she murmured. "Let them." He led her toward the bar. "They're wondering how I got so lucky. Or they're wondering what the American is doing here. Anyone who questions your place here will answer to me." He ordered them both drinks, then turned to face the room. "You belong here, Amara. With me. Don't let anyone make you doubt that." The evening passed in a blur of introductions and careful political conversations. Amara held her own, years of academic conferences and business meetings giving her the skills to navigate this world. But she was hyper-aware of Jay Hyun beside her, the way he never strayed far, the possessive pride in his eyes when she charmed a difficult investor or deflected an inappropriate question. It was perfect until it wasn't. Kim Dae-young arrived an hour into the gala, flanked by men in expensive suits that didn't quite hide the violence underneath. Amara felt Jay Hyun go still beside her, felt the temperature in the room drop several degrees. "We should leave," she said quietly. "No." His voice was steel. "We're not running from him." Kim approached them with a smile that didn't reach his eyes. He was older than Jay Hyun, maybe 50, with silver hair and the kind of face that looked friendly until you saw what was behind the expression. "Park Jay Hyun. I didn't expect to see you here." Kim's Korean was smooth, mocking. "Not after our recent disagreements." Jay Hyun's hand tightened imperceptibly on Amara's back. He responded in Korean, his tone polite but edged with warning. Kim laughed, a sound like breaking glass, then his eyes slid to Amara. "And this must be the assistant everyone's talking about." He switched to English, heavily accented but clear. "The one who's caused so much trouble. I'm a partner, actually." Amara kept her voice steady even as her heart raced. "And I don't cause trouble. I solve problems." "Interesting." Kim took a step closer, and she felt Jay Hyun shift, positioning himself slightly between them. "You're very confident for someone in such a dangerous position." "She's under my protection." Jay Hyun's voice had gone deadly quiet. "Which means she's untouchable. I thought I made that clear when I eliminated 12 of your operations last month." The smile finally fell from Kim's face. "You think you've won because you destroyed a few warehouses? I've been building this empire since before you were born, boy. And I'll dismantle it piece by piece if you threaten what's mine again." Jay Hyun's hand moved from Amara's back to her waist, pulling her closer. "Walk away, Kim. While you still can." For a moment, tension crackled between them like lightning about to strike. Then Kim laughed again, but there was no humor in it. "Enjoy your evening," he said, looking directly at Amara. "Both of you. While you can." He walked away, leaving a wake of unease behind him. Amara found she was shaking slightly, adrenaline flooding her system. Jay Hyun turned her to face him, his eyes searching her face. "Are you all right?" That was a threat. Her voice came out steadier than she felt. "He just threatened us in front of everyone." "I know." His jaw was tight. "We're leaving." "But the gala isn't worth your safety." He was already guiding her toward the exit, nodding to Chin, who materialized from somewhere in the crowd. "We're going home. Now." The car ride was tense. Jay Hyun made several calls in rapid Korean, his voice clipped and angry. Chin drove with focused intensity while 2 other security vehicles flanked them. Amara watched the city lights blur past and tried to process what had just happened. When they reached the house, Jay Hyun ushered her inside quickly, security sweeping the property before allowing them entry. Once the door closed behind them, he finally seemed to breathe. "I'm sorry." He pulled off his tie with jerky movements. "I shouldn't have let him get close to you. You didn't do anything wrong." She set down her clutch, watching him pace. "But you need to tell me the truth now." How dangerous is Kim Dae-young? He stopped moving, his back to her. When he finally turned, his expression was bleak. Very. He's connected to organizations in China and Japan, has politicians in his pocket, and he's ruthless in ways that would give you nightmares. The operations I destroyed last month were just the beginning. He won't stop until one of us is dead. The words hung in the air between them, heavy with implication. Amara felt something shift inside her, fear warring with anger and determination. Then we need to be smarter than him. Jay Hyun stared at her. What? You heard me. She moved toward him, her heels clicking on the marble floor. You said I was a partner, right? Not just in the legitimate business, but in this too. So stop trying to protect me from the truth and let me help. Amara. No. She stopped in front of him, tilting her head back to meet his eyes. I'm done being the damsel you have to rescue. I'm done being the weakness your enemies can exploit. If I'm going to be in your life, really in it, then I need to understand all of it. Something like awe crossed his face. You're serious. Completely. She reached up, touching the cut above his eyebrow that had finally healed. You protect me. Let me protect you too. He caught her hand, pressing it to his cheek. You have no idea what you're asking. Then show me. For a long moment, he just looked at her. Then he pulled her close, crushing her against his chest, and she felt him trembling. Not with fear, but with something deeper, something that felt like relief. I love you. The words were muffled against her hair. I didn't mean to. Didn't want to. But I love you, and the thought of anything happening to you makes me want to burn the world down. Amara's breath caught. She pulled back just enough to see his face, saw the vulnerability there, the truth written in every line. I love you too. The admission felt like jumping off a cliff. Even though you're dangerous and complicated, and you've dragged me into a world I never imagined. I love you. He kissed her then, and it was different from before. This wasn't possession or question. This was promise and surrender and coming home all at once. She kissed him back with everything she had, pouring 3 weeks of wanting into it, 3 months of fighting attraction, a lifetime of not knowing she'd been waiting for exactly this. When they broke apart, both breathing hard, his hands were shaking as he cupped her face. Stay with me tonight. His voice was rough. Really stay. Not in the guest room. Not with space between us. Here. With me. Yes. He kissed her again, softer this time, then took her hand and led her upstairs. His bedroom looked different at night, the city lights creating patterns on the walls, the space feeling both vast and intimate. Amara turned to face him, suddenly nervous despite everything. I should tell you. If you're about to list reasons why we shouldn't do this, don't. He moved closer, his hands finding her waist. Unless you've changed your mind. Unless you don't want this. I want this. She reached up to loosen his bow tie, her fingers fumbling slightly. I want you. I'm just scared of how much. Good. He helped her with the tie, let it fall to the floor. Fear means it matters. Means it's real. She helped him out of his jacket, then his shirt, revealing the bruises that had faded from purple to yellow, the scars that told stories she was beginning to understand. He watched her trace them with gentle fingers, his breathing growing uneven. Beautiful, she whispered. Damaged. Beautiful, she insisted. Every part of you. He reached behind her, finding the zipper of her dress. Can I? She nodded, and he lowered it slowly, his knuckles brushing her spine, making her shiver. The dress pulled at her feet, and she stood before him in simple black underwear, feeling more vulnerable than she'd ever been. Amara. Her name was a prayer on his lips. You're perfect. I'm not. Perfect, he repeated firmly. He lifted her easily, careful despite his healing ribs, and carried her to the bed. Every inch of you. What happened next was slow and reverent and absolutely consuming. Jay Hyun took his time learning her body, every touch deliberate, every kiss placed with purpose. Amara stopped thinking, stopped worrying, and just felt. The slide of his skin against hers. The way his hands knew exactly where to touch. the sound of her name falling from his lips like a benediction. When they finally came together, it felt like pieces clicking into place. Like something in the universe shifting to accommodate this new reality. She clung to him, overwhelmed by sensation and emotion, and when she shattered, he was right there with her, catching her, holding her, making sure she knew she wasn't alone. After, wrapped in his arms with the city lights painting patterns across their skin, Amara felt tears slip down her cheeks. Not from sadness, but from the sheer intensity of it all. "Hey." Jay Hyun wiped them away gently. "What's wrong?" "Nothing." She pressed her face against his chest, feeling his heartbeat under her cheek. "Everything. I don't know. This is just overwhelming." "I know." He held her closer. "But we're in this together now. Whatever comes next, we face it together." "Together," she repeated, testing the word. It felt right. Felt like home. They fell asleep tangled in each other, and for the first time since arriving in Seoul, Amara slept without nightmares. The next morning brought reality crashing back. Jae Hyun's phone rang at 6, and the conversation he had in rapid Korean made his expression darken. When he ended the call, he looked at her with something like regret. "Kim made a move overnight. Hit 3 of my warehouses and 1 of my clubs. No casualties, but significant damage." Amara sat up, pulling the sheet around herself. "He's escalating." "Yes." Jae Hyun was already out of bed, pulling on clothes with efficient movements. "I need to handle this." "Then let me come with you." He paused, shirt half-buttoned. "What?" "You said we're partners. You said we're in this together." She threw off the sheet and started looking for her clothes. "So, let me come with you. Let me help." "Amara, this isn't a boardroom. This is dangerous." "I know." She found her dress from last night, pulled it on even though it was completely inappropriate for daytime. "But I'm done sitting on the sidelines. If I'm going to be part of your life, I need to understand all of it. Not just the sanitized version you show me." He stared at her for a long moment, conflict clear on his face. Then he crossed to her, framing her face with his hands. "If you come with me, you'll see things you can't unsee. You'll know things you can't unknow. There's no going back from that." "I don't want to go back." She covered his hands with hers. "I want to go forward. With you." His eyes searched hers, looking for doubt, for hesitation. Whatever he saw there made him nod slowly. "All right. But you stay close to me. You do exactly what Chin tells you. And if I tell you to run, you run." "Understood." "Understood." 20 minutes later, she was in the back of the sedan with Jae Hyun, wearing clothes Chin had somehow procured in her size, heading toward a part of Seoul she'd never seen. The buildings got older, the streets narrower, and the people on the sidewalks had harder edges. The warehouse they arrived at was barely controlled chaos. Men in dark suits were assessing damage, making calls, moving inventory. When Jae Hyun walked in with Amara at his side, conversations stopped. She could feel the weight of curious and confused stares, but she kept her spine straight and her expression neutral. Jae Hyun immediately started issuing orders in Korean, his presence commanding instant obedience. Amara watched him work, saw the respect and fear in equal measure from the men around him, and understood in a visceral way exactly what kind of power he wielded. Chin appeared at her elbow. "Miss Johnson, you should see this." He led her to an office area that had been ransacked. Files scattered everywhere, computers destroyed, a message spray painted on the wall in Korean. "What does it say?" she asked. Chin hesitated, then translated. "It says, your American pet will watch you burn." Ice slid down her spine. This wasn't just about business territory. This was personal. Kim was targeting her specifically, using her to get to Jae Hyun. "I need to see the other locations," she said suddenly. Chin looked surprised. "Miss Johnson. Please. I need to see the full scope of the damage." He glanced at Jae Hyun, who was still across the warehouse. Some silent communication passed between them, then Chin nodded. "This way." They spent the next 3 hours visiting the damaged sites. Each one told the same story. Precise, targeted attacks designed for maximum disruption and minimum casualties. Kim wasn't trying to kill people yet. He was sending a message. Back at the first warehouse, Amara found Jay Hyun in the office, staring at the spray-painted threat. When he heard her footsteps, he turned, and the rage in his eyes made her catch her breath. "I'm going to kill him." The words were flat, absolute. "I'm going to kill Kim Dae-young for threatening you." "No." Amara moved closer. "You're going to be smarter than him. Amara, listen to me." She grabbed his hands, forcing him to focus on her. "He wants you angry. Wants you to make mistakes. That message on the wall, the timing of the attacks, all of it is designed to make you react emotionally. He threatened you." "I know. And I'm scared. But I also understand strategy, and this is bad strategy. If you go after him now, you'll be playing his game by his rules." She took a breath. "Let me help you think this through. Let me be your partner, not just your weakness." She saw the moment he hurt her, really hurt her. The rage didn't disappear, but it crystallized into something colder, more controlled. "What are you thinking?" "I'm thinking Kim has spread himself thin, hitting 4 locations at once. I'm thinking that requires coordination and resources. I'm thinking there might be gaps in his organization right now that we could exploit." A slow smile spread across Jae Hyun's face, dangerous and proud. "You're brilliant. I'm practical." But she smiled back. "Now, do you have intelligence on his operations? Financial records? Anything I can analyze?" For the next 6 hours, they worked. Chin brought files, both digital and physical. Amara applied her economics training to the patterns of Kim's organization, finding weaknesses Jae Hyun's more visceral approach had missed. She mapped supply chains, identified key vulnerabilities, and built a strategy that would dismantle Kim's empire piece by piece without the kind of direct confrontation he was expecting. By the time the sun set, they had a plan. It would take weeks to execute, maybe months. But it would work. And more importantly, it would keep both of them alive while they did it. Jae Hyun pulled her close as they stood looking at the map they'd created, marked with targets and timelines. "You're incredible," he murmured against her hair. "We're incredible," she corrected. "Together." "Together," he agreed. The weeks that followed were intense. Days were split between legitimate business at Park Industries and careful dismantling of Kim's operations. Nights were strategy sessions and stolen moments, building something real amid the chaos. Amara learned the full scope of Jae Hyun's world. The legitimate businesses that provided cover. The less legitimate ones that provided profit. The careful balance he maintained between Seoul's underworld and its upper echelons. She met his lieutenants, earned their respect through competence and courage. She learned to read situations, to understand the subtle language of power and threat. And through it all, she fell deeper in love with the complicated, dangerous man at the center of it. 6 weeks after the gala, Kim Dae-young's empire began to crumble. Not through violence, but through precision. Financial accounts frozen. Supply chains disrupted. Key allies convinced to switch sides. Every move was careful, calculated, leaving no evidence that could be traced back to Park Industries. Kim fought back, but he was scrambling now, reacting instead of planning. And in that scrambling, he made mistakes. The end came on a rainy Tuesday night. Jae Hyun received word that Kim had called for a meeting, requesting negotiation. It was obviously a trap, but it was also an opportunity. "I have to go," Jae Hyun said, checking his gun with practiced ease. They were at the house, supposedly safe, but both knew that safety was an illusion now. "Then I'm coming with you." "Absolutely not." He didn't even look up. "This is going to get violent." "I won't risk you." "You're going to walk into a trap alone?" "I'm going with Chin and 20 of my best men." "I'm hardly alone." He finally looked at her, and his eyes were gentle despite the weapon in his hands. "Stay here. Let me handle this." "Jae Hyun, please." The word stopped her cold. He never said please. Never asked when he could command. "Please, Amara. Let me do this without worrying about you. Let me end this so we can finally be safe." She wanted to argue. wanted to insist on her partnership, her right to be there. But she also saw the fear beneath his determination, the way his hands weren't quite steady, and she understood. This wasn't about trusting her confidence. This was about loving her too much to risk her. Okay. She moved to him, pulling him down for a kiss that tasted like goodbye and promise all at once. But you come back to me. You hear me? You finish this, and you come back. Always. He kissed her again, fierce and possessive. I'll always come back to you. She watched him leave with Chin and the security detail, watched the cars disappear into the rainy night, and felt her heart trying to climb out of her chest. The waiting was agony. She tried to distract herself with work, with television, with anything. But all she could think about was Jay Hyun walking into danger, possibly dying, while she sat safe in his fortress. 2 hours passed. Then 3. Her phone stayed silent, and every minute that ticked by felt like an eternity. When the front door finally opened at midnight, she nearly collapsed with relief. Jay Hyun walked in, soaked from the rain, blood on his clothes, but none of it apparently his. His eyes found her immediately. It's done. His voice was hoarse. Kim's dead. His organization is scattered. We're safe. She ran to him, not caring about the blood or the rain, just needing to touch him, to prove he was real and whole. He caught her, holding her so tight it almost hurt, and she felt him shaking. I thought I'd lost you, he whispered into her hair. He had snipers positioned. If Chin hadn't spotted them. But he did. She pulled back to see his face. You're here. You're safe. That's all that matters. No. He cupped her face, his thumb brushing her cheek. You're what matters. Everything I did tonight, every risk I took, was to make sure you'd be safe. To make sure we could have a future. We have one now. She smiled through tears she didn't remember crying. We have forever, remember? You promised. I did. He kissed her, and it was different from every kiss before. This was relief and joy and the absolute certainty of surviving something that should have broken them. And I plan to keep that promise. Good. She kissed him back. Because I have plans for that forever, and they all include you. He laughed, the sound rusty but real. What kind of plans? The kind where we build something real. Not just a business empire, but a life. A home. Maybe eventually a family. She watched his eyes widen. Too much. Not enough. He lifted her easily, heading for the stairs. Never enough. Not with you. That night, they made love like people who'd survived a war. Desperate and tender and absolutely certain. And when they finally fell asleep wrapped around each other, Amara felt peace for the first time in months. The aftermath took weeks to settle. Kim's death left a power vacuum that had to be carefully managed. But with Amara's strategic mind and Jay Hyun's reputation, they navigated it successfully. Park Industries grew even stronger, and Amara became known in Seoul's business circles as the woman who'd tamed the untamable Park Jay Hyun. 3 months after Kim's death, Jay Hyun took her to dinner at an exclusive restaurant overlooking the city. It was a Friday night, and Seoul sparkled below them like scattered stars. I have something for you, he said after dessert. Amara raised an eyebrow. Another gift? You know you don't have to keep buying me things. I know. I like to anyway. He pulled out a small box and her heart stuttered. But this one is different. He opened it to reveal a ring. Not flashy or enormous, but perfect. A single diamond set in platinum, elegant and timeless. Amara Johnson. He took her hand, his eyes serious. You challenged me from the first moment we met. You've made me want to be better, do better. You've seen every dark corner of my world and decided to stay anyway. You're my partner, my equal, the person who makes everything else make sense. He took a breath. Will you marry me? She should hesitate. Should think about all the complications, all the dangers still lurking in his world. But when she looked at him and saw the vulnerability beneath the power, saw the love he was offering her, the answer was simple. Yes. She laughed as tears spilled down her cheeks. Yes, of course yes. He slipped the ring on her finger, then pulled her close for a kiss that made the other restaurant patrons politely look away. When they broke apart, both smiling like idiots, Amara felt like her heart might burst. "I love you," she said. "Even though you're dangerous and impossible, and you've turned my entire life upside down. I love you too." He tucked a curl behind her ear. "Thank you for staying. For choosing me. For building this life with me. Always," she promised. "Forever, remember?" "Forever," he agreed. 6 months later, they married in a ceremony that blended Korean traditions with Amara's American roots. Her mother flew in from Atlanta, charmed despite her misgivings. Jay Hyun's parents accepted her with the kind of reserved warmth that spoke of deep respect. And when they exchanged vows, promising to love and protect each other through whatever came next, Amara knew she'd made the right choice. The reception was held at Jay Hyun's house, now their house, and as she danced with her husband under the stars, surrounded by friends and family and a life they'd built together, Amara thought about that first day. Walking into his office for an interview, meeting his eyes and refusing to back down. She'd been looking for safety for escape. Instead, she'd found danger and challenge and a love that defied every expectation. "What are you thinking?" Jay Hyun murmured against her ear. "That I'm exactly where I'm supposed to be." She smiled up at him. "That every choice I made, every risk I took, led me here. To you." "Good." He kissed her temple. "Because you're stuck with me now. For better or worse." "Mostly better," she teased. "Mostly," he agreed, laughing. And as they danced under the soul sky, two people from different worlds who'd found their way to each other, Amara knew that whatever came next, they'd face it together. Not as boss and assistant, not as king and queen of some dark empire, but as partners. As equals. As two people who'd chosen love in the midst of danger and built something real from the ashes of what could have destroyed them. If you've made it to the end of this story, thank you for staying with Amara and Jay Hyun's journey. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button, leave a comment about your favorite moment, and like this video. What story should I tell next? Let me know below. Until next time, remember that sometimes the most dangerous choice is also the most worthwhile.